Welcome back. In this video, we're going to be installing Red Hat Virtualization Hypervisor. And for my environment, I'm using RHEL 7 Workstation, and I'm going to be using KVM virtual machines. I highly recommend using KVM, especially for your first time playing around with Red Hat Virtualization. It's just an easy way to spin up images so you can play around with the environment. So first, let's go over to the Nova Atlas, and we're going to click on Installation right above the Red Hat Virtualization hosts. And this is going to give us the steps to install Red Hat Virtualization Hypervisor. So first things first, we're going to have to download the ISO image from the Red Hat customer portal. Then we're going to write that image to a USB. That's for a physical installation. For us, we're just going to attach the ISO image to our virtual machine. And then finally, we'll walk through the installation. So first, I wanted to show you how to download the image from Red Hat's website. So let's go ahead. And we're going to navigate to access.redhat.com/downloads. And then you're going to see all the product downloads. And we're going to navigate to Red Hat Virtualization. And then on the next page, we're going to click on the download the RHVH installer image. And that'll bring us to the page where we can actually download the hypervisor image. Now you may notice that it's showing version 4.2. That's because it just recently came out of beta, but the exam is still based on version 4.1. So we're going to go ahead and click the drop down under version and select 4.1. Now once you've selected that, scroll down just a bit and then download the hypervisor image for RHV 4.1.11. This is the latest version of the hypervisor image, so go ahead and click download. If you're installing this on a physical machine, after the download, you're going to need to make that into a bootable media. So you may want to pause this video so you can follow along after you get the bootable media created. For me, I've already downloaded the ISO, so we can go ahead and move on with the installation. I'm going to click back to the Nova Atlas, and we're just going to follow these installation steps. So first, I'm going to click on this Red Hat icon here and navigate to the Virtual Machine Manager. It's going to ask me for my password. Enter that. As you can see, I already have two virtual machines running. One's the IPA server and the other's the manager, which we set up in an earlier video. So let's go ahead and click the new virtual machine icon. And it's going to ask us where we want to find that install media. We'll hit forward. And we're going to browse for the ISO image. And I created an ISO directory. It's going to have my RHVH image as well as my RHEL 7 server image. So we'll go ahead and select the RHVH 4.1. Click Choose Volume. And then we'll hit Forward. Now I'm going to allocate 4 gigs of RAM, or 4096 megabytes. And then I'm also going to do 4 CPUs. Then we'll hit Forward. And for the virtual disk, I'm going to allocate 150 gigs. We can select Forward. And for the name, you can make this whatever you want, but I'm going to call it rhvh1.linuxacademy.local. And for the network selection, I'm going to choose this bridge interface that I set up to expose the virtual machines to my local network. And before we hit Finish, I'm going to hit Customize Configuration before install. And the reason for this is that we need to enable host pass-through for the CPU so that it can get those virtualization flags enabled from the BIOS. So under Model, we're going to select that, clear it out, and then type in host pass-through. Go ahead and click Apply. So without this setting, the virtual machine will not know that virtualization is enabled on the host machine, and without that, you won't actually be able to create virtual machines. So now we'll go ahead and hit Begin Installation. And then it's going to jump us into the boot menu, and we can select Install RHVH 4.1. Feel free to test the media if you're doing a physical install, just to make sure nothing went wrong. And once this comes up, I'm going to go ahead and make the screen just a little bit larger. And this first page is the language selection screen. So Feel free to choose whatever language you prefer, but I'm going to go ahead and do the default that's selected for English, United States, and click Continue. Next is the installation summary. So first we'll go up to date and time. And you can select whichever date and time works for you. For me, I'm going to be using New York, and you can also use this drop down here if you'd like to. So once that's selected, go ahead and select Done. Next, we're going to need to choose the keyboard layout. For mine, I'm using the default English US. Feel free to choose whatever you need. Next, we'll go into the installation destination. And if you have a particular setup that you'd like to do, you can choose to configure the partitioning yourself. I'm going to go ahead and go with the recommended of automatically configuring the partition. So that's selected. I'll hit Done. Next thing is to go to the network and host name. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the network interface. And DHCP is going to assign us an IP address. And then I'll go down to the host name, and I'm going to enter rhvh1.linuxacademy.local. Feel free to name your host whatever you'd like, and then you can hit Apply. And before I move on, I'm going to click Configure because I'd like to assign a static IP address. So we're going to move over to IPv4 settings and change from DHCP to manual. I'm going to hit Add here and enter 192.168.29.122. Net mask is going to be 24, and the gateway is going to be 192.168.29.1. Feel free to set this up based on your environment. Next, we're going to go over to DNS servers, and we're going to enter 192.168.29.1. Now, before I save, I'm going to click on the General tab and click Automatically Connect to this network when it's available, and then we'll hit Save. So now that we're done with the network and hostname, we can hit Done, and then we can click Begin Installation. Now Red Hat's going to go ahead and continue the installation while we set up a root password. So go ahead and click that. And for me, I'm going to make my root password virtual. As you can see, it's a pretty weak password, and it's not going to meet the policy standard, so we're actually going to have to select Done twice. Next, we'll go to User Creation. And I'm going to enter my name, Matt. Click Make this User Administrator, and then enter a password. I'm going to use virtual again. And then we'll have to select Done again because it doesn't meet the policy standards. Now this installation can take several minutes, so I'm going to fast forward through to the end, and then we'll have to reboot the machine. So once the installation is complete, we're going to go ahead and click Reboot. And then we'll need to wait for the machine to come back up. I'll go ahead and fast forward through so you don't have to wait on me. So after the reboot completes, it's going to load up the boot menu and then boot into Red Hat Virtualization Host 4.1. So let's go ahead and log in as the root user, password virtual. And when you first log in, it's going to do a node status check. You can see that says OK. It's also going to give us the admin console URL, which is the same as a cockpit interface. And before we log into the admin console, let's just make sure that our network interface is up and running and that we can reach outside of the virtual machine to the internet. So ipadder shows the correct IP address and that it is up and running. Next, we'll just ping google.com. As you can see, we're getting data back, so that's all checks out. It's good. Let's clear this. So let's go ahead and log into the cockpit interface. First, we'll open up a new tab, and then we're going to enter in the address, https://. Now you can either use the IP address or the host name. I'm going to go ahead and use the host name, rhvh1.linuxacademy.local. And then we're going to add the port, which is 9090. Then you can hit enter. Now it's going to say our connection is not secure because we don't trust the certificate. This is okay because we know what's running here. So click Advanced. And then we're going to click Add Exception. And then confirm security exception. So once you do that, we're going to be presented with the login page for the admin console. And I'm going to log in as the root user, password virtual, and hit enter. This first page is going to show us a health check, as well as the version that we're running. But we want to go ahead and register this with Red Hat's Content Delivery Network. So we're going to click on the server icon up here on the top left, and then we're going to navigate down to subscriptions. Once we're there, we'll go ahead and click the blue register button. And we can use the default URL. And you're going to log in with your Red Hat account. Then hit register. And sometimes you have an invalid username or password. Try that again. All right, looks like it liked it that time. So this is going to automatically register with Red Hat, and it's going to attach to the proper entitlement. So once it finishes, the status is going to change to current, and you are registered with Red Hat's network. So the last step we'll do for the installation, navigate back to the Nova Atlas, is to enable the repo RHEL 7 server RHVH4, and that'll allow the system to be able to have future updates. So let's go ahead and click on the terminal, and then we'll use Subscription Manager repos --enable equals RHEL-7 server RHVH 4 RPMS, and then hit enter. That might take a minute or two to complete. Just make sure that the repository name is enabled for the system shows up for you. And that completes our installation of Red Hat Virtualization Hypervisor. Go ahead and mark this video complete, and we can move on to the next section.